On today's episode of The Business of Creators, I sit down with Maggie Reum, a woman building one of the most ambitious creator-led brands of this decade, Hot, Smart, Rich. She sets the tone early with her big, unapologetic vision.
I have no doubt that HSR will become the biggest creator-led female ambition brand of the decade. And I really think that I could become the first female podcast that holds the number one spot.
Then she breaks down the engine behind her explosive rise, a community that behaves more like a movement than an audience.
I want you to feel like you're at dinner with me. I've worked with celebrities that have millions of followers that couldn't pull actual in real life experiences. And I'm able to curate a group of not just like women, some of the most ambitious, successful, driven women, which is one of the hardest audiences to reach.
We also get into the deal that's about to rocket launch the whole thing, her new partnership and investment from Steven Bartlett's FlightStory.
And it was just a no-brainer once I met the team, like, of course there's Steven, who is honestly one of my biggest inspirations, but it is a female-led team at FlightStory. It is a female CFO, two female co-founders, and CEO and head of revenue.
This episode is full of ambition and the mindset required to build something real in the creator economy. You really don't want to miss it. So Maggie, when someone asks you what Hot, Smart, Rich is, what's the clearest way that you define it today?
I think today I define it really with the community at the center of it, but it is building the biggest female ambition brand that's creator-led at the center of everything that we do, which currently is a short form content podcast, weekly newsletter. And then, like I said, the community is really at the center of it. So we just so happen to start this WhatsApp channel. And now we have meetups all over the world, from like Toronto, my hometown, to LA, where I now live, Sydney, Australia, London, England. And girls are actually just meeting up because they all are a part of this HSR movement. And we hope to really focus on that short form today and that creator IP today, and then in the future really be able to build the future of community and also products.
Excellent. Well, I'm really excited to get into it. What's the background? What gap in culture did you see that made you think I need to do this?
I think like every founder, you are solving a problem that you had yourself, right? And I think for me growing up, I felt that dichotomy and having to choose between who I was 9 to 5 and who I was 5 to 9. And there was this moment where I was like, it's kind of crazy that women control 85% of consumer spend in the US roughly, and we get 2% of venture dollars. And I personally feel like every time I get into the workplace, I'm having to like completely leave who I am, the way that I talk, the way that I dress, my hobbies, my passions at the door. This feels crazy. And it was just looking on TikTok and feeling like, okay, there's all of these halls, these beauty shops, these fashion halls, and it is driving consumer spend, but it also isn't helping women understand that and the connection that they actually have with financial decisions. And it was like a those like some people have a moment and some people it's like all these little things that add up. And I was diligencing a deal when I was investing, and it was in the beauty space, in medical aesthetics specifically. And all of the investors on the phone were like, I'm going to go ask my wife. And I was like, it is crazy that all of these men are going home and these women are giving them the keys to the financial, what we're actually spending money on. And so it was all of these little things that I just finally felt as a founder, like I have to go and solve this problem. I don't want brain rot content. I want educational, empowering, but also still very feminine and very like passion driven and hobby driven. And so when I first started creating these TikToks, short form content, I said to myself, I want you to feel like you're at dinner with me. I know that if I go and niche down and only do one form of content, I will grow very quickly. But that is not where longevity is, and that is not where a community is. I want to feel like women are sitting down for dinner with me. We're going to talk about business, investing, finances, and relationships and reality TV and fashion and beauty. And that's really where it stemmed from. And I think that is really the why. It's what drives me every single day. It wasn't because I wanted to be an influencer or just build content, to build a personal brand. It was really driven from a place of like, I need to go and solve a problem.
I've been listening to some of the shows and it's got this really eclectic mix of content. Why do you think that works in a way that traditional business media doesn't?
This is Ian, like, the question I have tried to solve. I don't know if you listened to the last episode, but we talked a lot about, like, why is Shark Tank the only business show that has worked over the last decade of business content? And I think it ultimately comes down to the consumer wants emotion, not logic. And they want characters. They want people that they can relate to. And ultimately, business shows that it's missing that, except for Shark Tank. You can see kind of like David versus the Goliath between like the founder and the sharks, right? And there's tension that feels like every single person can relate to it. Who has the power at what time? And I think when I thought about business shows, like I was so bored. I was listening to it and I was just like, this is great because I'm learning something, but I have to be at my desk taking notes, writing things down. And I want the girl who is doing everything that can habit stack listening to this podcast while she's grocery shopping or going to Sephora or leaving, dropping her kids off at daycare and feel like she's not having brain rot, but she feels understood and she feels like she's being talked to. And it's funny now, like, my first boss telling me if you don't change the way that your inflection in the sound of your voice is or the way that you talk, you'll never go anywhere. You'll never be successful. And I actually think that tone of voice and that relatability was sometimes very complex, hard to understand concepts or language makes the average woman feel like if she can do it, I can do it too. And so my weakness actually has become my superpower. And I actually think that is what is relatable. Sometimes I trip over my words or fall over my words because I have dyslexia. And instead of hiding that, I really embrace that side of myself. And I think more than ever, we're about to enter into a world where that human touch of like, what is not AI, what is not perfect, and like always just feeling exactly, I feel like manufactured is what women especially will really relate to.
Well, it's very inspiring to hear about your journey there. Was there a point in time where you realized it was more than just the content? It was like a movement you've started here.
Yeah, I think so. I used to work for celebrities and I would put brands with celebrities and we would sometimes host events. And I remember we had with celebrities, we had like sometimes millions of followers. And I remember this one time there was a celebrity that had 4 million followers and we had a meetup with a brand and she brought, I think it was four, maybe five people. And I was like, whoa. At the time, you're just like, that's pretty crazy because I worked with other celebrities who could fill a stadium, right? And it was in that moment that I was like, this is kind of, well, it was embarrassing, first of all, for us with the brand. I felt terrible. And then, second of all, it was like when I started hosting my own events, and we hosted one in New York and one in Toronto, and there was like 60 people that came and they were so engaged. The event meetup was supposed to be for an hour. It was just a casual walk, like let's walk around Toronto, let's walk around New York City. And people stayed for like 4 or 5 hours to the point where my sister actually had to like pull me away and be like, okay, she's got to go now, which I wasn't expecting. Like some of my great friends to this day, I actually met through the HSR community at like the first few comments and like DMs that they would send me. They've become great friends of mine today. But it was in those two meetups where I was like, whoa, I've worked with celebrities that have millions of followers that couldn't pull actual in real life experiences. And I'm able to curate a group of not just like women, some of the most ambitious, success driven women, which is one of the hardest audiences to reach. Like these women control significant financial spend within their family. They're making over $100 million a year. Some are investment banking, some are the heads of like Meta AI glasses. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, brands would pay thousands of dollars to reach this consumer. And we were able to bring together 60 of them when I had like 20,000 followers, right? And it was that moment where I was like, this is not about me. This is about this community. And how can I service them to create something that obviously doesn't exist? Because if you're going to spend your Saturday going to a coffee meetup, there's a missing part of culture right now. There is something that women are craving that isn't just a workout class or isn't just a drinking culture. It is mixing everything together to feel like you're really understood for the first time. And I think the other thing is like I've built something that I wanted and I want myself. Like I have equally as much fun at these things. It's not work to me. It's like genuinely connecting with amazing women and business deals have come from it and great friendships. And so I think that's really when I realized like this is different.
Well, we should talk about that community and the insane engagement that you're getting through it. But we're also here to talk about the investment. And what was the moment when you realized you needed a partner to go bigger?
So I actually don't think that we needed a partner to go bigger. And I think that's really where this partnership has come from in the most like organic and authentic way. I really realized that HSR was going to get there eventually. But when you're building with two full-time people and freelancers and contractors, like I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs and creators can relate to as they listen to this, it's hard. And you are doing everything yourself. And I have never had a doubt in my mind that we would get there and build the biggest female ambition brand of the decade. It was a matter of how quickly can we scale and how many people's lives can we impact. And ultimately, we can do that way faster with someone like FlightStory. They have a proven methodology. They know exactly what they're doing. There is a reason why all of their shows in the UK became #1 on Spotify this year for Wrapped. Like, this is not something that they say they're able to do. This is something they've proven they've been able to do. And for me, like, I measure everything by impact, truly. Like, it's even funny, this is a little antidote, but we were just talking with the team about like dropping a piece of merch on International Women's Day. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, HSR was built to support other women's businesses. I am never going to take a day for self promotion in that way. Like, this is an opportunity to be able to go and build other people's brands in the HSR community. And so I think it's like, I measure everything by impact. And ultimately, the decision came down to like, how am I going to be able to scale this IP to make the biggest impact the fastest? And it was just a no brainer once I met the team, like, of course, there's Steven, who is honestly one of my biggest inspirations, but it is a female led team at FlightStory. It is a female CFO, two female co founders, and CEO and head of revenue. Most of the team that I work with is females. And I just felt like it was the easiest decision I've ever made.
That makes absolute sense. And can you talk about how the deal came together? Like, did they approach you? Did you reach out to them?
So it's actually kind of a crazy story because always take a coffee meeting. So 2 years ago, I got a DM from Grace Miller, who's the head of failure and experimentation at FlightStory. And she asked when I was in London, England, if we could go for coffee. We had a coffee meeting. It was amazing. I left feeling like really inspired. She asked really thoughtful questions. And she was like, why do you not have a podcast? Like, this is something that you would be so great at. And of course, it's something that I had wanted to do, but like everyone says, the podcast space is saturated. There's no white space. Everyone has a podcast. And so you let that self doubt get into you. So, long story short, kept that in the back of my mind. Podcast finally launches January of this year. And for any creator listening to this, like, you just never know who's watching. And I guess it was Grace that initially put it into the company Slack channel. And it was like, I started seeing some followers come from FlightStory onto my Instagram. And I was like, that's cool. But like, I never know what translates over to actually downloading a podcast, because that's another interesting thing. And you probably know this as a creator economy expert, but like, someone that's great at short form isn't necessarily going to transfer to be great at long form. And especially the listener, right? Like, it's a lot harder to get someone to listen to an hour than it is to listen to a 50-second TikTok video. So I had no idea that they were listening. And they were from day one. They were sending it in their Slack channel. They were watching what I was doing. And it was really interesting because I get a DM. So backing up a little bit, what we had realized at our side was, oof, the podcast space is really interesting because it's what we're spending 75% of our time on, yet we are not actually able to monetize this because we're not signed to a network. And most deals happen when an agency goes to a network and then the network actually distributes it to all their shows. So it's very hard to actually monetize a podcast unless you are signed to a network. So we were kind of in this weird place where we were like, we really need to start making money from this. We're having amazing downloads. Like, we know that there's something here. We're spending most of our time on it, but like, we can't monetize this. So getting into a network was definitely top of mind. But when we had talked to other ones, it wasn't strategic. And it was like, we're going to help you monetize. And that was really it. And what we were really looking for was a strategic partner. And so the craziest story is that my sister, we were in New York, we shared a room because, saving costs, and it's my sister. And she goes one night, you should just message Steven. Like, he follows you, he's commented on a few things, just message him and see what happens. And hopefully people don't listen to my response as a piece of advice, because I said, why? Like, there's no way that he would be interested. I don't know. Like, I just self-deprecating, which is exactly what not to do because you never know who's watching. Shoot your shot. But as fate would have it, like, opportunity is luck meets preparation. We were prepared. We had done the work. And so when Steven he DM'd me one morning and he was just like, "We love what you're doing. Have been loving watching. Like, you are a founder. You are not just a creator. Could I put you on email with my team and they would love to chat?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And we did not act cool, like acting as if we had all these other things. We were like, "Yep, let's get on email." We got on email right then and there. And just like my other favorite saying is deals that stall fall. And we made sure that nothing stalled because we wanted to make sure this deal went through and it wasn't going to fall. And I'm so happy to say months later, like we're right at now, obviously, the go line. This is where the hard work starts, but it was really the most organic, authentic way to find not only a network and partner, but also an investor. Like, this is the first time we've taken anyone that has any sort of equity on our cap table, minus my sister and I. And so that's obviously a huge deal. And we're just so excited to get started.
It's a great story, and it reminds me of John, who's the founder of Stan, who had a similar one where he was DMing with Stephen. So I would encourage all entrepreneurs to DM Stephen, perhaps.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about what you think will change sort of in the short term and what's going to change in the long term with this partnership.
I think in the short term, it's really about scaling the IP. And they have a proven methodology. And like I said, we were really doing everything ourselves. So they always joke with me, like, the hard work is already done. Like, you have the community, like, your customer, you know exactly who you're speaking to. And so I think this scaling, like, we would put out podcasts and we have a built in audience, right? But like, we weren't even able to manage putting out more than 2 clips every single episode because it was like on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And I think what's really exciting about this is the opportunity to really work the catalog and the short form IP, as well as obviously the long form podcast and newsletter. And I think that really remains the focus because we know that the community and the products will come once we actually identify the needs that we are serving, the customer that we are serving on a large scale. So my goal with this partnership is really to go from a devoted niche audience to an engaged prestige audience of the same consumer, but on a greater scale. And so I think that's really where the focus lies for this first, couple months and years of focus for us is really to focus on reaching as many people as possible with the current business that we currently have.
Great. Well, let's talk about the community. And I know they refer to themselves as the angels. When did you first notice that was forming?
I kind of forget if it was like I called them angels. Well, first of all, I just say like angels all the time. Like, thank you so much, angel. It's just like a natural thing that I've always said. And then I thought there was a really interesting play on words when I became an angel investor. It was like a token of I've made it, even though I hadn't. Like, my first angel investment was $2,500. And I think that's something that is really relatable to a lot of people, right? Like, I didn't start investing $25,000, $50,000 checks that we do now. Like, I started with $2,500. And I remember being able to call myself an angel investor. And I was like, whoa, like, does this mean I've made it? And so I was kind of thinking through like a shared language of the community, right? Something that really ties us together and not just saying, hey guys, which actually like most of our audience is actually not guys, it's women. Interestingly, though, we have about 30% of listeners that are actually male. But I speak to the angels. We've actually now branched off to Angelino. So we have the angels and the Angelinos, which is actually a term that someone at FlightStory came up with. And I just remember thinking, like, how can I make every single person feel like an angel investor by making them a plus one? And I think that's really where my content has come across is like, it's about democratizing the access that I get. And through a lot of different factors, like I feel really privileged to be in a lot of rooms that sometimes I have a lot of imposter syndrome of and thinking like, why am I here? Like, I'm so lucky that I'm here. And what am I going to do with that? Like, am I going to sit here and feel bad that I'm in this room, or am I going to sit here and figure out how can I actually democratize this information? And so I think that word angel became really important to figure out how to actually translate to people before they were an angel investor. And it's been really cool now because of course we have a lot of different angels, some of which have no interest to become an angel investor. And that's great too. But there is that little kind of Easter egg of, okay, it started because I was an angel investor and it was more about like, okay, how can I create that sense of democratizing access into a place and into a community? And I think I just started doing like, hi angels, hi angels, hi angels. And it just kind of took off from there.
And in a world of AI, I think that real life events are really going to come to the forefront. How did your meetups start?
They literally started with those walks, and it was funny because I would post on my story and I would say, "If anybody wants to go for a walk, actually, I was getting a lot of DMs to have one-on-one conversations, and I think this is one of the hard things around when you are scaling and when you're growing, like, you want to be able to give attention to a lot of people that are interested in your advice, right? And that's where I started being like, "Okay, maybe I can start creating content because that will be the way that I can help a lot of people with, like, questions that they have." Kind of the same thing with the walks. It actually started because when I would go to New York, I would get maybe like 5 to 15 messages of people that I actually would go for coffee with. Cause again, these angels are not an average community. They're doing amazing things. Like they actually have been people I've invested with or investment bankers that I take like their research docs and actually make informed decisions off of. And so I was like, "Ooh, I wonder if I post that I'm like gonna do a walk, if I can get like 5 or 10 people to get together and join me." And then they just started growing from there to the point where like we've done meetups now with hundreds of people. And now we're at an inflection point, I would say, of trying to really identify a strategy because as helpful as they are, like on I think they can be a lot bigger. And I think that we can create more impact and also just like forge connections a lot easier. So we have this WhatsApp channel that again we started and it's funny talking from a place of like everything's going well, but that's not how it started. We started a Slack channel initially first. It was a complete failure because it was about asking Maggie a question, direct access to Maggie. And interestingly, we just did a survey with all of the angels in the WhatsApp channel. I think maybe like 400 of them responded and we asked them like what's the number one reason that you're in the chat and they like most people, I think it was 80% of people said it was to engage with other angels. I think there was 12% of people that said it was to engage with Maggie. And that was where I was like we are building a community first brand. I actually feel like, yes, I'm very connected with HSR, but that was a signal that like HSR can actually live on without me one day. We're going to grow such a big movement and such a big creator led media business that like there can be other really cool people that can come in that it doesn't necessarily, it's not connecting just with Maggie anymore. And I think that's how we want to evolve the events as well, as it's more about the community and less about even my involvement with them.
It's fascinating to hear that. If you had some advice for another creator that was thinking about building a community and not just content, what would that be?
The first thing is start with a why. My favorite book for any founder is Start with Why. We hear so much like, start building your personal brand, start creating content, but it's like, why? Because I agree with that. And I think everyone should have a personal brand to a certain extent, but your personal brand might not be posting every single day, right? And I think that like, what I've seen as a through line as an investor and also as a creator, and I look back, we were creating some assets for the launch and it was interesting going back into the archives, which I honestly haven't done, and seeing how I first started. Like the mission is the same. And it's when there's periods of the algorithm's not my friend. Like I've never been burnt out. Like I've never been frustrated. And I think that goes back to like having a why and feel like I'm really creating impact. And then also feeling like I didn't niche down. And I can tell you, I would have been so burnt out if I had just been doing B2B angel investing videos my whole career being a creator because like I'm so much more than that. And so I think my advice for any creator is like find your why and like make that the center of every single thing that you do. Make that the guardrail. Like should I be doing this? Does it actually make an impact? If not, don't do it. And then I think the other thing is like we're so focused on the success and the metrics. I think because we haven't focused on that, we've really focused on the impact. Everything is now starting to come. And you just never know who's watching, right? Like as a creator, you never know who's watching. Whereas when you're in a boardroom and you're presenting, like you know who's in the room, like they're the gatekeepers. And with creative now, like the creator economy and social media, you just don't know who's watching. You could have someone like even the last podcast that I did, I got a message from one of the largest executives at Shopify being like, "We loved your AI trend report. Like, this is so interesting to listen to." And I'm like, wow, I had no idea that one of the heads executives at Shopify listens to my show. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things about the creator economy. So it's like, have a why, focus on that and then just keep going because even if the metrics and the success aren't there, you never know who's watching and could completely change your life like Steven and Flight Story are doing for me.
It's great, so great to see that enthusiasm and passion. Many creators struggle with the transition to CEO. How have you found that?
So, great question, Ian. I think, my whole career, I really identified myself as someone who was like inspirational and a great leader, but not necessarily the best people manager. And I think that stems from like having ADHD, first of all, and feeling like, that saying, and it's like the founder problem for everyone. Like, I can do it better. And I think when I decided to bring my sister in to my business and become a 50-50 partner, she had just managed 25 people at one of the fastest growing direct to consumer darlings that she had hired herself. So she was the only person in finance when she started. When she left, she was managing 25 people. And she had a skill set that, like, truthfully, I don't have. I've never managed 25 people, and I'm not going to pretend to say like I have. And I think we have developed a really interesting structure in our business because like a CEO, I love raising money. Like I love fundraising. I love selling a vision. I love being out and sharing the vision and inspiring a team. But something that I identified very early on was like, I am not an amazing people manager. And so how we separated the business is like I take on a lot of the traditional CEO capabilities and I'm actually really in the business. So I even admitted this on a podcast episode. I negotiated this deal with FlightStory. Like I did it. I was the one leading the process. I'm not some creator that's like hiding behind a full team of people doing it for me. Like I was like, this is my skill set. I know what I'm doing. But we made my sister, as much as she's the co-founder, also the president. So as the business grows, like she's really the one that is going to be managing people because we just identify like that's not my superpower. And I think a lot of the time you hear this title CEO and you think you have to do everything of like what traditionally has been done. And that's just not the reality. The world is changing so quickly. That's part of HSR's mission. Like what we have once known as reality doesn't have to be the reality in the future if it doesn't work for you. And managing people like just doesn't work for me. So we've set up the structure where it works for what my superpower is because at the end of the day, a creator-led media business is built on a creator. And so it has to work for that creator. And then I think the other thing is like, and it's honestly the story of my life of just like getting to this place is I have always had a learning and growth mindset. Like if I don't understand something, I'm not afraid of that. I dive into it. And so there have been things like, having to even get Slack. Like Slack is not my favorite thing. It is now, but when I first got it, that was even a tool that to me was like, oh God, like another thing to check. And I think it's just taking everything with a learning mindset and a growth mindset of how is this going to help the business move forward and create that impact? Again, going back to the impact of like, it might not be comfortable for me to do X, Y, and Z, but if it helps create a better impact, I'm going to do it.
It sounds like you and your sister are a great complementary team there.
Oh my God, yeah.
So it's been great, Maggie, to hear about the investment and the community. Before we wrap up, what does the future look like? Where do you think HSR will be in 5 years from now?
I think that it's a really crazy thing to say out loud is like, we hope to reach millions of people in the very near term future, which before Flight Story would have felt crazy to say in the near short term future. After Flight Story and their methodology and some of the tools that they have, like the proprietary AI tool, Guest Radar, it doesn't feel that far away, which is truly insane. I think right now reaching millions of people feels very much focused on like the current business. So our short form content, our podcast and our newsletter. I think if you ask me in 5 years, it really has expanded to like the community and the product side as well. I think similarly to the way that Flight Story has developed really interesting products and technology that really serve a need. And I think you know, I, I worry to say, oh, products, but we are only going to make products when we feel we are really servicing an unfulfilled need from our community. And that is something that I feel really strongly about and is possible in the next 5 years. I think being able to just build alongside incredible people, the future is really endless. Like the team at Flight Story is truly the best in class that shares the same vision that I do. So I have a feeling that looking at the trajectory of DOAC over the last 5 years and having the same people on that team do the same thing for HSR feels like I'm sure how Steven feels. The possibilities are endless. And I think as long as we make sure everything feeds back into like that mission and that why, I have no doubt that HSR will become the biggest creator led female ambition brand of the decade. And I really think that we could and I could become the first female podcast that holds the number one spot. So definitely coming for everyone on the charts and can't wait to see what happens.
Excellent. Well, very inspiring. Thank you, Maggie, for joining us. I'm really excited to follow the journey and all the best for the future.
Thanks so much, Ian. I had such a great time.
Thanks for listening to The Business of Creators. I've got some big guests coming, so be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now, if this is your first time listening, I'm Ian Shepherd, co-founder and co-CEO of Electrify Video Partners. We invest in large, established creator businesses to accelerate their growth. For creators, that means three things. First, the chance to take money off the table today. Second, the expertise and a team to scale your business faster. And third, a creative transition plan, enabling you to step back or exit the business altogether. We've raised over $100 million and made 10 investments, including YouTube channels Veritasium, Fern, and Fireship. If you're a creator thinking about the next stage, please get in touch to find out more.